Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. Welcome aboard, Senor Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard, AVQ. You know, I just want to say this. Avon Q. Okay, I tried. Anyhow, folks, we're going to have a great program for you today. Please stick it out completely because we have some good stuff. After I do my regular introductions and my videos and so forth, we have a great interview with John Perkins. You have to check this out. He just wrote, oh, thank you, buddy. Close enough. We have to go ahead and let's see how to put this. Listen to what he has to say in detail. This guy is, you know what I believe in economically. Now, this guy is not quite on the same wavelength with me, but I love this guy because he wants to make things better. And it doesn't matter. People try to do things in different manners, in different ways, etc., etc., etc. If what your goal is to make life better for your fellow man, I am with you. Whether you agree with the way I do it or whether I agree with the way you do it, our ultimate goal is to make things better for everybody, not one group, one sect or whatever. But when we say make things better for everybody, that is what we're talking about, making things better for everybody. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get busy with the show as soon as this stuff posted. There you go, you posted. All right, let's go ahead and get busy with the show, my brothers and my sisters. Today's title of the show is Author-Activist John Miller talks about economics and more. I kind of put economics in there, but it was, if you look at economics in a very broad term, that is what we're talking about, right? And that is what we sat down and we had a great discussion on that. And you know what I found out? He's been to my part of town. He's been to my country. He's been to my city, Colón. He's been to Panama City. He's been to Costa Rica, Bolivia, Peru, Uruguay, all these places. He's a traveler. He actually is an economist. He worked with the World Bank. So he knows everything. He's the guy who wrote that hit book on the entire system. But again, he's still a part of that system. We're just wanting to make it that much better. Don't forget, folks, we are taking call 346-248-7799, code 254-600-9091. Air Wesley, hola, ¿cómo estás, mi hermano? Bienvenido, mi hermano, Sir Wesley. Anyhow, John Perkins provided an all-encompassing discussion that covered capitalism, oligarchy, the environment, and his book touching the Jaguar. We cover Trump's COVID-19 failure and Biden on statues. So let's go ahead and start with Biden on statues. You know how I feel about Joe Biden, but when Joe Biden does something good that I think is worth talking about, you know I'm going to talk about that. And I think Brother Biden did something very good today. I want you to listen to this response to this reporter, and then we'll take it on the other side. Check this out. A reporter asked a question about monuments to Joe Biden. Now, the first answer he gave was kind of okay, except that he included Christopher Columbus with Washington and the others. I think that they should not have made that. When it came to Christopher Columbus, I think he didn't belong in that particular discussion. Anyhow, when they asked him about the monuments that the folks are taking down, he said, yeah, I think all the Confederate monuments should come down, but I do believe that it is the onus of the elected officials who have not done their job. You have placed a lot of your citizens having to go through the pain of seeing these things for decades.
You talk about the fathers of this country, Washington, Jefferson is worthy of preservation. Are Confederate monuments worthy of preservation? Should they be torn down in the manner that they are being torn down without the vote of local elected officials?
Well, I think it's very different. I think it's better if they're taken down like they took the Confederate flag off the Mississippi flag. That's the better way of doing it. But I can understand I can understand the anger that people feel by having, for years and years, been under the statue of Robert E. Lee, who, if you're an African American. So it's a difference. It's always better to do it peacefully, but there's a distinction between, and those monuments, and I shift responsibility, and I think the elected officials where those statues are have a responsibility to move. Put them in museums, get them down. But don't expect, if you have sitting in front of you after all these years, and we finally are going through another phase of maybe responding to the systemic racism in America. And what we've seen happen is, don't be surprised if someone pulls down the statue of Jefferson Davis. It's better that they do not, but it's fundamentally different than pulling down the statue of Jefferson Memorial and grabbing Jefferson off his chair.
Excellent answer, in my opinion. Now, it's amazing. The right wing is going to take that and they are going to run with it. And we better be prepared to say that is the right thing to do. He puts the onus on the elected official, and if they don't get it done, well, we'd prefer that things are done peacefully. But if you continue to inflict pain on people, people are going to react. That is exactly what everybody has always done in this country. Whenever things don't go the way that we think they should go, and we think we have the righteous position, we go ahead and do the right thing. The monument must go. Okay, good. Let's see. End Dafed. Let me talk to you a little bit. I normally answer things at the end, but I think your statement requires a response, and I think it requires a response right now. Your question was, are you any blue will do? Absolutely not. I am not any blue will do. The next question you're probably asking is, how can you be a former delegate of Bernie Sanders, a supporter of Bernie Sanders, and then a former supporter of Elizabeth Warren, and accept a Joe Biden as the candidate? Any blue won't do, but in this case, as in other cases, I tell my brothers and sisters on the left, and there are very few people that are more left than I am. I may carry myself a bit differently, but I'm very, very, very left in policies, in all the things that I support. However, we have to do as progressives a better job. I was on a call a few days ago where that is what we're talking about. We're talking about, look, for all practical purposes, we get our clock clean, not because the people don't want what we want, but that many times we don't work and mesh together the way we should. I'm talking about those on the left, the very progressive side of the Democratic Party. I should say Democratic Party. I should just say the very progressive side. What we have to coalesce onto some sort of intra-supportive nature. In other words, we can't break up because Egberto's part of this progressive movement wants to do this, and John's part of this progressive movement want to do this, and it's our way or the highway. Here's what I tell all my left-wing progressives. I look at them and I tell them, whether I agree with you or not, I am coming to support you. I tell them that all of the times, and I think that is something we must tell all our folks. I am there to support all my lefties, whether I agree with them 100% or not, because there's one thing I do know, and that is we are all working for something. We're all working for what's that society? Well, I can't remember the word right now, but we're all looking for a society that benefits us all. And that is what I work towards, and I won't put barriers there right now to get started on that. Biden is going to be our choice. Biden is the choice. And that's coming out of me. People are going to be, how the hell can you say that? The reason I am saying that is we are going to use him as the launching pad. Not that he's going to pass policies or that he's not a neoliberal that's going to try to do things in neoliberal way. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying as we bring folks on And I think I just saw Air Wesley said something about bringing AVQ, bringing keep going down ballot. That is the magic. We bring everybody in, but we also want to make sure that when he's in there, we know and we force certain issues. And you see, if you want to understand what's going on in the country right now, do you know why all these southern governors are running to take these statues down, even though there are a whole lot of AK-47 carrying, Confederate flag carrying folks not wanting it, but they're doing it? Because they understand. They understand the shift in dynamics. And we, as those of us that are on the left or the very left, like myself, we cannot allow differences between us all to go ahead and prevent that migration. So we have to play it smart. Very, very, very smart. And that's what I intend to promote. That's what I intend to do. And with respect to you, I'm assuming that you're concerned about that, brother End Dafed. But respectfully, I would tell you, let's get the job done. And assuming, we are on the same side, I assume, and we will be doing things the right way. So, I would love to hear a response from you, End Dafed. So go ahead and give me a response, if you will. Anyhow, the next video that I want to show you is important. Very important. It has to do with, can you believe that we Americans, just like we had barred people from China from coming into the United States because they were polluted, just like we have banned people from South America for coming in for other reasons, just like we were the country that was banning people from coming to us. That's how it used to be. Guess what? Europe has made it final. You are not welcome, Americans. You guys are too polluted. You guys are too dirty. You guys are too infected. Remember how we spoke about infected people? Remember how Donald Trump used to talk about they come over their diseases? Anytime you are pointing a finger, I'm pointing this finger. How many of them are pointing back at me? Think about that. Think about that. So what I'm saying is now we are the country, because our mismanagement, because of the inept leadership that we have, nobody wants us. In fact, you're not going to see a lot of people flocking here because we are too polluted. We can get you killed. But anyhow, check this out. This is important. What is pathetic is that we are in a state now where the willful ignorance of many is putting too many of us at risk. It's not something that we can allow natural selection to take care of. I want to play this and then we'll take it on the other side.
There's a graph that I want to show. There's really, when you're talking about a contrast, there's a graph that shows the coronavirus as it spiked in the EU. It shows it on the way up, spiking at a high level in the EU, and then coming right down based on the response that European nations took, the lockdowns they took as an entire nation to curb the spread of that virus, to flatten it and then decline the spread. At the same time, you see the spread in the United States. Here it is. And so we go up, we peak, and we come down slightly, and now we are past our peak. We are going even higher as this is spreading to states that either reopened too soon or states that even if they did reopen in a delayed way, maybe the public didn't take the recommendations, the mask wearing, the social distancing as seriously as they should have. When we're talking about a contrast, just contrast what the European Union did and what the United States did. And you can argue that there's no bigger indictment on the leadership from the top of this country than what we saw on that graph right there.
that Americans cannot see that the problem that we are having with the coronavirus has little to do with the virus proper. The virus is doing the thing that it's expected to do. The problem is that because of our sheer choice of ignorance, we are not doing what is right, and it's going to cost the economy. It's going to cost people lives. And as you could see from that graph, as America is exponentially rising again past what it was when it was at its peak, past that, we are actually now where we could near permanently hurt the economy of this country. And the economy, I'm not talking about the economy of the industrialists, the economy of the corporatocracy, the economy of the super wealthy, because you know what? The countries that are doing fine, these same multinational corporations, they'll just take their business over there. They'll just go and do business over there because they can actually have businesses running. But with our backwards mentality here, thinking, let's pat ourselves on the back. We are exceptional. We are the best. Well, all the other countries are outdoing us. So we don't need to worry about whether we are the best. The fact of the matter is that graph says that we are one of the worst. Exceptionalism? This isn't exceptionalism. This is sheer country destructing policy. Period. Country destructing policy. Period. Anyhow, we are kind of up on time now, so I better go ahead and let's go and have a talk with El Señor John Perkins. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us. We have a great guest today, John Perkins. John Perkins is an author and activist whose 10 books on global intrigue, shamanism, and transformation, including his new book, Touching the Jaguar, Shape-Shifting, and the classic Confessions of an Economic Hitman, has been hit on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 70 weeks, sold over 2 million copies, and are published in 35 languages. Fortune 500, or rather, as a chief economist at a major consulting firm, he advised the World Bank, United Nations, Fortune 500 corporations, U.S. and other governments. He regularly speaks at universities, economic forums, and shamanic gatherings around the world, and is a founder and board member of the nonprofit organizations, the Pachamama Alliance and Dream Change. John Perkins, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Egberto. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Hey, look, let me tell you, it's great having you. Before I interviewed you, I listened to a whole lot of your work, and in watching what you had to say, I mean, I know the people at Politics Done Right are going to love you. I know that the people in the different domains where we are going to get some inspiration from you, because what you're talking about are things that we need to talk about. Now, there is a breakdown of your book. And before we get into the new stuff, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, you had a little snippet that really rang aloud. It says, life is composed of a series of coincidences over which we have no control. Once we are presented with such coincidences, we gave choices. How we respond, the actions we take in the face of coincidence makes all the difference. COVID-19 has changed everything. What can we get out of that coincidence?
Yeah, well, that is, Egberto, before we get started, I just want to show you that I'm surrounded by Jaguars. Here's
wow.
Yeah, she's actually a little American kid, but she looks a lot like a baby Jaguar. The reason I bring it up is because you may hear a meow once in a while, and that's her. She's only 8 weeks old.
Perfect.
Very, very curious. So this coincidence that's hit us of the COVID-19, and also all that's going on around police brutality, white privilege, racial discrimination, all of this is going on. How do we deal with these things? Yes, this is our fate in a way. These are coincidences, but they're not coincidences. They're happening to us for a reason. And I like to remember a story a true story, a woman high in the Andes Mountains of Ecuador, Quechua-speaking woman named Maria Juana. What a great name, huh? Maria Juana.
Maria Juana.
Maria Juana Yamberla. And she was a shaman lady, and I take groups there every year to her and to other shamans in many parts of Latin America. And a few years back, I was translating for a group. One of the people asked, so Maria Juana, how do we save the earth? And she laughed and she said, the earth's not in danger, we are. And we'll take a lot of other species with us. But right now, we're like so many fleas. And if we get to be too much of a nuisance, she'll just shake us all off. And then Maria Juana points up at this volcano that high in the Andes, and she says, just a few years ago, that volcano was covered with a massive ice cap. It isn't anymore. The ice cap's gone. Pachamama, Mother Earth, is twitching. She hasn't shaken us off yet, but she's warning us. And we all listen to these messages. And you know, Egberto, that all over, during the years since then, every time there's been a major hurricane or flood or fire, I've thought about that. But you know, we've taken these events as local. So you're in Houston. If you happen to survive a hurricane in Houston,
several,
you would expect the outside world to come to your rescue fairly soon, bringing in bottled water or whatever. In Houston, it might already be there, but there's parts of the world you expect that. But so we just kind of chalk these things up to, yeah, local, we'll go back to normal. This virus, and now this awareness of the social and racial inequalities that we have are hitting the whole world. You know, this is no longer a local event. There is no outside world. And so each mama is speaking to us, and you can look at this completely from the scientific standpoint, you know, we've cut back on our economic growth, and it's changed things. The animals are coming back, and we can see stars in places where nobody ever saw stars before.
Imagine that, yeah.
Imagine that. Or you can look at it shamanically. The earth is a living creature that speaks to us. But either way, we're being told that we've got to change, and this pandemic is hitting us so hard. But I gotta say, you know, if we don't listen, if we don't change as a result of this permanently, if we don't realize there's got to be a new normal, we've got to go from an old failing system to a new one that will be regenerative and work, we'll probably get hit even harder next time.
And, you know, I actually think we are not even through a first phase here, so this could actually be the time. Now, in several of the talks that you've had, you've talked about empire, and one thing about empire is that they all fall. How they fall is kind of interesting. One of the things you've said is, well, you don't want this, you want us as activists to really get involved to make sure that we don't fall, but what we do is change. Now, COVID-19, I see the way the rest of the world responds to it and how we are. And we are dramatically worse than, let's say, China and the European Union, which are doing fairly well comparatively. But do you think this is one of the things that could actually destroy us as being the leading empire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's absurd when you think about it, isn't it? That the wealthiest country in the history of the world is also the one country that can't seem to really handle a virus, and we should be able to. We spend as much money on military as the next 10 countries combined, and we build these defense systems that aren't helping us in the least bit defend ourselves from this thing that's killed more people than World War I or Vietnam and Korea combined. More of our soldiers, and so yeah, I mean, we're being shown the empire was already in decline. We all know that China has been slowly, not very slowly, but replacing, you know, moving in to take over a superpower. You know, you're from Panama. I just came back from Central America and South America. I spent a lot of time, and China is having a huge impact throughout the Southern Hemisphere, and yeah, and we're being shown here. China's got a much bigger population, but it's dealt with this virus much better. One of the things I find very, very interesting is that, so China has basically a dictatorship, an authoritarian government, but everybody listens to it. and respects it. And when they tell you to wear masks, they wear masks. And the United States, we elect our government, but we don't listen to it. So, and even the government doesn't listen to itself. Trump is not wearing a mask, even though all of his medical advisors tell us all we should be wearing masks. What does that say about us? It's very, very interesting how this is happening.
Well, you speak a lot about capitalism, and you came from first of all, tell me a little bit before you made your transition. You were an economist. You worked in the field. You were a true capitalist, weren't you?
Yes, and I guess I would say I am a capitalist in the purest sense of the word. That capitalism, to me, the definition of capitalism is it's a system where the means of production and commerce are not owned by the government; they're owned by individuals, and it has healthy, fair competition. We have a system where the means of production are not owned by the government, they're owned by individuals, but the individuals own the government. So we've turned this around in the United States, where we know that nobody gets elected.
That's the policy, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't have fair competition. We've got oligarchies and monopolies, and yeah, you may in your local community there might be two coffee shops vying with each other competitively, but if Starbucks comes in, it can drive them both out of business. The same with all kinds of stores that Walmart or one of the big box companies will drive out of business. So what we have today, I think, is something we could call a global predatory capitalism. It's an aberrant form of capitalism. It's not the purest form. My grandson's lemonade stand is capitalism.
Right.
And all the little local markets, farmers markets, that's capitalism. And what we have today is something that's taken that to an extreme, and it's an extreme that's destroying the planet as we know it.
Well, I've decided not to, in my narrative, I've decided just to let capitalism be what the current capitalists decide they want it to be, and use the very simple term, I surely believe in free enterprise. And by leaving it at free enterprise, I leave the capitalism to those who are doing with capitalism what they do with capitalism, to make the argument or to make the discussion rather simple. But in questioning our current form of capitalism that we have right now, we know it's not sustainable. How do we migrate? How do we migrate to what we should have? And what do you call what we should have, based on sustainability and everything else? Yeah, so the book, Touching the Jaguar, Transforming Fear into Action to Change Your Life in the World, is totally based, the main theme is that our reality is molded by our perceptions. And so, you've got this perception behind you of a world that's on fire, and it's an ocean that's on fire, and that's a perception of what can happen. But let's not let it happen. But let's be on fire spiritually and intellectually to turn this thing around. What we have today is an economic system that a lot of economists are referring to as a death economy. It's more than economic, it's a governmental social economic system. And it's based on one perception. And that perception is that the only goal of business should be to maximize short-term profits, essentially for a few wealthy individuals. Milton Friedman.
Yeah, that's right. Milton Friedman, 1976, won the Nobel Prize and said that. The only responsibility is to maximize short-term profits, regardless of the social and environmental costs. And that's created this system that gives CEOs the right, the mandate, to do whatever they think is necessary to maximize short-term profits. And that includes destroying long-term resources upon which their very business depends. It includes destroying the environment. It includes exploiting people. It includes racism. It includes corrupting politicians. And now you can corrupt politicians legally, campaign financing and so forth is legal, but that's a form of corruption. There's no question about it. From the strictest, from the deepest sense of
Citizens United McCutcheon. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've created this perception. We've used this perception of maximizing profits to create an economic system that today is failing us. But all we have to do is change that perception and turn it around to the goal of business is to maximize long-term benefits for people and nature. That we pay investors a decent rate of return, to pay people to clean up the environment, to rejuvenate destroyed resources, rejuvenate devastated environments, and to create new technologies, to recycle, to create technologies that use wind and solar much more efficiently even than we are today, that create energy from air and so on and so forth. There's such an amazing opportunity here for us to create what we can call a life economy, an economic system that is itself regenerative and is itself a renewable resource. All we have to do is change our perception so that the Time Magazine's Person of the Year becomes you, or becomes whoever is taking a leadership role in transforming the death economy to a life economy. And it's a simple change of perception. Now, a simple change of perception that requires work. Yes. But the starting point is to change our definition of what it means to be successful human beings on this planet. No longer it's about accumulation of material things and maximization of that. It's now about long-term benefits, or what we might even call spirituality.
I love the way you put that, the change of perception, because that is prescient. That is extremely important. I have interviewed real capitalists, and sorry for not calling you a real capitalist, but I've interviewed real capitalists, and we've been on panels before. And when I propose certain types of policies, they would say things like, well, how would that affect business? And my answer to them is, what comes first, or business? I says, right now, we create business and force humanity to adapt to business. Shouldn't we adapt business to the needs of humanity first? And a corollary to that would be the needs to humanity vis-a-vis the need of the environment, the need of everything that makes things sustainable. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I totally agree with you. There's no question about it. The question is, how do we make that happen? And I have to say that I speak at a lot of big economic forums. I was recently speaking to 12,000 people there in St. Petersburg, Russia, including President Putin and Secretary General of the United Nations, Gutierrez, and others. And, in these conferences, I meet with CEOs and people in high positions afterwards. There are all kinds of people from the United States, big corporations at these meetings. And over a glass of wine and cheese as a reception, we have a talk, and they'll say, I like your ideas and I want my company to be very green. I have children, I have grandchildren, but I know that if in the process of being green, I lose 0.5% of market share, I'll be fired. My main investors will fire me and replace me with someone who only cares about market share. That's a dilemma that these people are in, regardless of what their beliefs are. And they'll say to me, so please, as you're speaking to people, as you're speaking to this show right now, ask the viewers to send me an email. So I would say, any viewer, pick a corporation, Walmart, Nike, Exxon, whatever corporation you want, and write them emails or tweets or whatever, and say, hey, I love your product, but I'm not going to buy it anymore until you pay your workers in Indonesia a fair salary, or clean up the environment, the oil spills you've done, whatever it is. And send it to them, and send it to all your social networking circles, and ask them to send it to the company, and ask them to send it to all their social networking circles. And when executives have enough of these, they can go to their top investors and say, hey, we got to listen to these things. There's 100,000 of these come from our customers. We've got to listen to them. And so I'm not trying to excuse executives. And there are obviously some that are sociopaths, but they also have to listen to their customers. But I am saying that, they're ruled by Wall Street. They're ruled by the investors, and they know that. And these guys are vulnerable. We, the people, the consumers, the employees, the consumers, the employees, and the investors, us, we have to make changes happen.
John, in listening to you and listening to your narrative, there's a certain dichotomy. I hear you are an environmentalist. You want sustainability. You want all these things. But I still see you very vested, and tell me if I'm wrong, very vested within the corporate structure, as if, let's say, the policy of, let's say, stocks, where there are shareholders, corporations, leading down in sort of a hierarchical manner towards then employees and otherwise. Do I understand that right, or?
Well, yeah, I think it's fair to say I'm an idealist, maybe a visionary, and that I see how it takes perception. First, it comes the perceptual change, and then you have to touch the Jaguar that keeps you from realizing the perception. And in this case, a big Jaguar is the corporations. The corporations control the world right now, truly. I mean, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it doesn't do any good to say, let's get rid of corporations, because I don't see that happening, not in my lifetime. Maybe it'll happen in your lifetime, but maybe it'll happen in my grandson's lifetime. But right now, it's what we're dealing with. This is the power structure. And there's a way to get in there and change the power structure. And we, the people, have the power to do that if we just come together to do it. It's about changing perception.
That's a great clarification, because you know, my theory. First of all, I get exactly what you're saying. I think that is how those people who are voting for Biden, let's say me inclusive, would be looking for a change, not getting the particular change that we want, but it is, and I don't want to call incremental change because I've written against incremental change, but getting the necessary step to move to the change that we actually want. So my concern is, with all the things that we want, I cannot see a system in which there are investors of the type that we have today, shareholders of the type that we have today, where people's values and people's needs would take precedence over profits. I don't know if that is possible. Tell me.
I totally believe it is possible. If I didn't, I wouldn't be on the show with you. I wouldn't be writing things. I'd just go out and, I wouldn't do that.
No. I think you misunderstood my question. What I'm saying is, I think we have to change the modus operandi if we are to really get to a type of system where humanity comes first.
Yes. And I think we've been on that path before the virus. I think, B corporations, benefit corporations.
Yes.
My publisher was the first publisher to become a B corporation and then a benefit corporation. Conscious capitalism, the Green New Deal. The fact that last August, 192 of the most powerful executives in the world came together at the Business Roundtable. And they made a statement that basically supported the life economy. They said, we no longer can focus on maximizing short-term profits. We can't do that any longer. We've got to move into a system that takes better care of our employees and our customers and our supply chains and the environment. They said this. Now, they said this. That's a perception change that they're already going through. But now we, the people, have to take the action to make sure that they adhere to that. I'm reminded of Franklin Roosevelt at the end of World War II. He was meeting with the top executives of the auto industry's labor unions. At the end of the meeting, he's shaking hands with them as they're all leaving the Oval Office. And he says, I think you guys now understand that I'm on your side. I want to do what you want me to do. You got to go out there now and get your rank and file to force me to do it, because that's the only way I can deal with Congress and the big corporations. You've got to push. And I think that's where we are now, is I think many of these executives understand it. Those sociopaths who don't understand it, what they do understand is success. And if we define success as short-term maximization of profits, that's what they'll go for. That's what they are going for. But if we turn that around, and Time Magazine, Fortune Magazine, all these people, if we start honoring the executives and the politicians and the media people who are moving toward a life economy, then the sociopaths, if that's the route to success, to fame and fortune, however they define it, they will get on the bandwagon. So we, the people, have to push this thing. This is what we're talking about, true democracy here, globally.
You know, that isn't unlike, you know, I got stopped by an officer, and it was one of the driving wild black issues, and I got stopped by this officer, and this officer, after stopping me and having a conversation, he turned out to be very, very nice. And I was going to the radio station where I was doing my show, and I went back to, well, after he stopped me, and he just gave me a warning, no tickets or whatever. He shouldn't have stopped me in the first place. But I went back just because of the dialogue that we had. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's take a picture together, because this was something that turned out pretty good to me. And then I went to the radio station, and I talked about it, wrote a blog about it. And then this guy got a commendation after I wrote the blog, and it went viral. But I got hell from the left. That is what he was supposed to do in the first place. And I said, well, maybe if we start rewarding people for doing good things, they will start to do good things. They would like the feeling of doing good things and do it. So I guess that is similar to what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that story. And it I know you don't mean it to in any way smooth over the terrible brutality that's also been going on.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, I know that. And they're, you know, I mean, the good cops are in very difficult positions too. But it goes back to what I think I said earlier, that, you know, if everybody writes a letter or an email or tweet to a corporation, and you don't start by saying, hey, Nike, I hate you because you're not paying your workers in Indonesia or India fair salary. No. You say, Nike, I love your products. I love your products, but I'm not going to buy them anymore until you pay your workers a fair salary or whatever it is. Or, you know, I don't mean to pick on just Nike, but any company. And I think that's the way people respond much more strongly to positive actions like what you expressed there. And yes, sometimes we'll take grief for this. You know, I take a lot of grief for saying, you know, for sometimes defending the idea of capitalism like we did. And I'm pretty careful to say, you know, I'm not defending the current form of capitalism.
Well, I mean, you heard me give a little bit of pushback on capitalism as well, because I mean, I heard that, you know, I mean, you have access. That I guess that's a good thing, right? Because the fact that you take the stance in the stance that you take, and the fact that you are in that domain, you have the ability to be that interface.
Yeah.
And you all. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I apologize for the background noise.
That's I love it. I love it.
Falling off the window.
No, look, I love it, man. But the thing about it is that we always need that interface. I always tell people, right? We need people in every single segment, if you will. We need them in every segment. Your mic's off.
Yeah, well, that was to just avoid the noise from the cat when you're talking. Yeah, you know, I think we need to look at this as a win-win, and that's why I think we really need to bring these corporations around. Ultimately, it'd be great to get rid of the monopolies and the oligarchies. You know, there's no question about it. I'd like to see all of that end.
Well, I mean, you've spoken about the corporatocracy. I've seen things where you've actually. And that's why I said in the first place that you are sort of a dichotomy, but in speaking to you, it's the kind of dichotomy we need.
Right. Well, yeah. So I'd like to see all of that change. And I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I'm 74 years old. But I do think it may happen in my grandson's lifetime. He's 30. In the meantime, we need to do everything we can to move into this new perception of maximizing long-term benefits. So think of it this way. If all those big corporations ended, if they were all broken up, and if every business in the country was owned by the employees, which I think is a great idea, but if that were to happen and we were still driven by the perception that the goal is to maximize short-term profits, regardless of the social and environmental costs, we'd still be in deep shit.
Exactly. Yes, no, you're right. Go for it. Yeah.
And so that's a nice it would be nice to have that system, but we also have to first or simultaneously move into a new perception of what it means to be successful as businesses and as human beings. It can no longer be about maximizing short-term consumptive, materialistic consumptive desires where we just, you know, if I don't wear this shirt, I'm not going to get to be on your show. I mean, that whole idea that if I don't buy the right clothes, if I don't drive the right car, I'm not going to get a good woman in my life or a good man or whatever it is I want in my life, you know? And we've got to move beyond that. And regardless of who owns the companies, who owns the businesses, we've got to have a perception of what it means for those businesses to be successful that's in line with creating a sustainable world, a world that our children will want to inherit.
Well, John, I asked this question to all my guests. What haven't I asked you? And we tell us beforehand, tell us a little bit about your new book.
Well, so Touching the Jaguar is a book that really brings together the 5 books I wrote on indigenous people and shamanism, shape-shifting, the world is as you dream it, psychonavigation, with the 4 on economics and global intrigue, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and 3 others that have sold over 2 million copies. Yeah, and so this brings them together. And I've always seen a connection between those 2 seemingly disparate genres, but people would ask me, you know, the shamanic people, the New Age people would say, you're not that jerk that was an economic hitman, are you? And the business people would say, well, you're not that woo-woo person, are you, that wrote those books on shamanism? But to me, there was always this connection, and that is that shamanism teaches us that perceptions can create reality. So does quantum physics, teaches the same thing, yes. and psychotherapy. And that's what business is all about. You know, advertising, marketing is all about using perception to change the reality of what people buy, what they do. And so I saw that connection, but it was never expressed overtly in the books. Now, Touching the Jaguar, transforming fear into action to change your life in the world, does that. And it does it through a lot of stories that I hope are fun to read and exciting, because I write, you know, true stories, narrative nonfiction. But in the end, too, it leaves people with a process that every one of us, every one of you, every one of your listeners can use to make them, to bring a better life to them individually and create a better world. And so there's this 10-minute process that you can do once a day or once a week that takes you there. It basically revolves around 5 questions that we can ask ourselves, and the answers then take us into this route where no matter whether you're a TV or a radio host or a writer or a carpenter or a plumber or a parent, or whatever you are, we all have a role to play in this. And it's important. Touching the Jaguar means identifying what we most want in our lives and identifying what blocks us. What are the barriers? What are the voices telling you can't do this? You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have enough education, whatever. And when we touch those voices, what kind of a change of perception do we get that allows us to move into actions that let us move into what it is we most desire? And it's a process in there that goes into that. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, to provide people with the backstories that will inspire them to know that we can do this, to talk about the death versus the life economy, and then to leave them with a practice that they all can do that will take them on a journey into this whole adventure that we're on right now. Because let's face it, we're living in an amazing time. I think we're all very blessed to live in this time. I don't mean to downplay the suffering and the people that have died and suffered throughout this on the racial issues and the pandemic issues, but this is an amazing, we're being shaken awake when the, Pachamama is twitching very hard right now.
Exactly. Well, now, John, what would you have liked me to ask you that I haven't asked you?
What are those 5 questions that each person can ask himself? That's what I'd like you to ask me.
What are the 5 questions?
So this, and I want to say that there's 5 questions and lead you to a daily practice that makes it easy to answer the questions on a daily basis. Questions are, number 1, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What will bring you the greatest satisfaction? And I would answer that just as an example by saying, I want to write. I like to write. I have a good friend who's a carpenter, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. He wants to work with his hands in wood. Okay, very different. The second question is, how do you do this in a way that helps other people? Because we all feel better if we're helping other people. So I would say I'm going to write stories that inspire people to make a better life for themselves and the world. My carpenter friend would say, I'm going to use sustainable materials. I want to use sustainable materials. The third question is, what's holding you back? What are the barriers? What are the Jaguars that are keeping you from doing this? As a writer, I might say, I don't have enough time in my day to write every day. And the carpenter might say, well, my customers don't want to spend more money on sustainable materials. And so the fourth question is, when you touch that Jaguar, how does it change your perception? As a writer, I'd say, well, I can get up half an hour earlier in the morning, or I can watch an hour less of television every night and create time for me to write. My carpenter friend touches the Jaguar says, just tell your customers that this additional price in sustainable materials is not a cost, it's an investment. They're investing in their future and their children's future. And the fifth question is, what actions do I take every day, basically? And for a writer, you got to write. It doesn't have to be every day, but most every day. You got to discipline yourself to write. The carpenter has to go out there and build things, and he doesn't have to write books about it, but he can say, hey, look, I just built this cabinet over here for you guys. Tell your children that you paid a little bit more for this cabinet, but it's an investment in their future, just like an education would be or whatever. You've invested in their future by building a cabinet with sustainable materials. So every one of us, doesn't matter if you're a carpenter, writer, a plumber, a teacher, whatever you are, every one of us can apply these. And every day, frequently, those last three questions, what's holding me back? How do I change my perceptions? What actions do I take? Those will change. So I overcome, okay, I'm watching an hour less of television and I'm writing. The next Jaguar touches, well, what am I going to write about? Oh, I want to write about the coronavirus. I don't know enough about the coronavirus. So I touch the Jaguar and it says, well, learn a little bit and then write from your heart. So every day we'll confront more of these things, but each time we overcome them, each time we touch that Jaguar, it gives us energy. It takes us to a new level of consciousness and a deeper satisfaction with ourselves and our lives. So it's this amazing process that we can all go through to bring us better lives individually. What can you do to change your life and the world? And we're impacting other people all the time. Whatever we do, we're all teachers. Every day we're impacting other people by our words and our actions.
John Perkins, let me tell you, I am on my third book, but I already started number 3, number 4, and number 5, and you just gave me the inspiration to take a few more minutes of the day to try to get them to hell finished. So John Perkins, author and activist, 10 books, his new book, Touching the Jaguar. You'll have a link to it in the blog post. We'll talk about it on the show as well. John Perkins, thank you so kindly for being on Politics Done Right. My pleasure. It's so great to be with you. Thank you for what you do. I love what you're doing and keep doing it.
Hey, folks, those of you who are patrons or saw that interview a couple days ago, and those of you who are subscribers on Facebook as well, remember we can now take subscribe. I'm coming to you phone line in a second. Let me just do this real quickly. You can become a supporter on Facebook by just clicking on Become a Supporter somewhere on our Facebook page, but here's a direct link that I just put into the feed. You can also become a Patreon, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. To become a patron, go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And here is the link for becoming a patron. And if you want to contribute via PayPal, the link is being placed in there as well. It is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. paypal.me/politicsdoneright. If you're on YouTube, you can always give us a super chat. I'll call you out and also put you on our wall. Anyhow, folks, let me take this call real quick to see if they're available. Caller from 469, did you want to say something real quickly? Caller on 469, area code 469, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on, caller.
Yeah. Hello, this is Charlie, and thank you for everything you do.
Well, thank you, sir.
Right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Hi, this is Charlie, and thank you for everything you do. That was an excellent interview. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Continue. I can.
Hold on just a minute. I'm having audio problems.
I hear you, buddy. But okay. While he fixes his audio program problems, please, folks, don't forget that we also have a store. You can go to store.politicsdoneright.com, and let me put that in the feed as well. There is our store. Are you there, Charlie?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good. Hi. Very good interview. Thank you very much. I'm glad you touched on the B Corp B certification. This answers your question, and I put it in the chat window, and you may want to put it in your blog. It's an environment where companies become B certified, and they are required to have a social component. They have to say explicitly in their mission that they are not just there for profit, but they are there to affect the world in a positive manner. So these things do exist. They're slowly happening, but it is happening. And by the way, there are companies in Houston that are B certified if you search for them.
That is good to know, Brother Charlie. It's important that we know that, we are not against corporations. We are not against companies.
No.
We are against an economic system that screws us all. We want everybody to have equal access to success in whatever form they decide to unite as a company, as a group, to effect commerce among us, as long as we realize that the first thing that comes to mind is humanity. Anything else before I got to close it out, Charlie? Anything quick you want to say?
Yeah, real quick. CSA, Community Supported Agriculture.
I saw that in the feed.
And please elaborate on that if you can, either now or in future things. It's a way of saying this is how we get away from having to depend on the corporations by going and supporting local things, in this case, local farmers, and subscribing to fresh products. And that also helps with health.
Brother
anyway,
Charlie,
that's it for now.
Thank you so kindly, man. You guys have a great day. Folks, I know you have places that you can always go listen to talk all over the internet. That you are here means everything to me. I want to thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right. For those of you who have the wherewithal, I want to ask you kindly to support this type of media. We don't get the support that we normally get, that we need. So we need everybody to step up in minute quantities, that is, in minute amounts. But we would love for you to step up and become patrons, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Become, if on Facebook you can join, you can subscribe. That link that I gave you on Facebook that I am going to scroll up to, which is facebook.com/become-supporter/politicsdoneright. Facebook.com/become-supporter/politicsdoneright. Look, folks, let me put my store on. I forgot to do that. Here is the store. Store.politicsdoneright.com. You can get cups, t-shirts, my books. Here we go. And I'm working on 3 other books. Okay? Anyhow, thank you so kindly for being here. You know how I'm going to end this, baby. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done. Lawrence Sims, welcome aboard. I guess I didn't tell everybody welcome aboard. Lawrence Sim, Charlie Lindahl, Mike Cisak, Norman Reynolds, Melissa Noble. Let's see, who else am I missing here? Wow, quite a bit. And the Fed, Michael Rudnan, I think I got you earlier on. Norman Reynolds. Who else am I missing? Guys, if I miss you, it's because I got to get out, or else I'm going to have to chop this baby up. Deidre Scott, Rose William, our blog editor, Sir Wesley 08, I gotta get out of here, Okay, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.